Kevin O'Leary is decimating the left. The guy from Shark Tank, I don't know if he's a billionaire yet, he definitely has a net worth in the high hundreds of millions, is talking about what's been going on in New York and about how the brand of New York is permanently tarnished by this, even if the case with public enemy number one goes to trial. I'm not going to say the name because I think that it gets the video flagged and fewer of you will see it, but you guys obviously know who I'm talking about. Kevin O'Leary is a financial expert. He's tuned in with all of the, massive financial institutions. He has connections everywhere. Definitely has connections across the big conglomerates like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, the massive banks, the other investors. And he's talking about how what New York is doing here is third world country-esque. When the founding fathers wrote the Constitution, they put in the 8th Amendment, which says excessive bail shall not be imposed, especially when there are no victims. And I think it's important to understand how these left-wing governments, these blue bubbles like New York and Los Angeles have, people often refer to Los Angeles and California as the golden goose. We have the goose that keeps giving golden eggs because we have so much industry here, because the weather's beautiful, because this is where we make entertainment. But the decisions are so repeatedly awful and horrendous in terms of policy that we now see industry starting to leave California. And the same thing is now happening in New York. The blatant corruption. What I want to appreciate here is that the world of investment, the world of coherence, the world of money, the world of finance, which is very sluggish to take any sort of political side, because taking a political side will often mean losing money, losing customers. They're all about the calculus. They're all about the money at the end of the day. And it's starting to get to the point where the finance guys, the people that only care about the cash, are entering the conversation. And that's what I want to show you here. That's the point of this video, so that you guys understand exactly how deep this corruption is. I see this type of leftist narcissism on display all the time, but especially in the female psyche that is deeply resentful and low verbal IQ, as they appear delusional on podcasts repeatedly in order to spite notions of objective reality. Despite the fact that they are humiliating themselves and appearing delusional, they continually come back over and over again in their late 30s, saying things that make no sense, exposing themselves as losers for all of society to see. That's very similar to what New York is doing and what California is doing, but California has been doing for a long time, in terms of throwing away the reputation in order to admit to the world that they're tyrants. They're so narcissistic, they think they can proclaim their corruption and they should be able to get away with it. But I think the fear of losing money, big finance, is marking a change in the culture that they may not be able to come back from. It's like the event horizon of a black hole. They've crossed the event horizon. There's no going back. There is no more escape. You're headed to the singularity. I don't think New York's brand can recover at this point, because even if the case is overturned, even if they lose on appeal, they told the world that they are willing to not care about facts or coherence or logic. They don't care about morality, but they don't even care about the law. They don't care about the 8th Amendment. And they are willing to publicly expose the fact that they're tyrants in order to have a witch hunt.
Just to help, in order to protect America's name. Think of it that way.
To get the bond, he was able to get the 90+ million from Chubb.
Yeah.
I don't know of a bond more than 90 million. I don't recall one.
Yeah,
and so you need cash to back up the bond insurance. And so now we're talking about the terminology of seizing assets. That's foreign language to an American investor.
Right.
They want due process.
Guys, keep in mind, this guy has been everywhere. He's done business on basically every continent, in countless countries, with China, basically every single country. And he is not overtly political, because we know to be on Shark Tank, you can't be overtly political, obviously. Yes, Mark Cuban, free speech is bad. We should all be vegans. I understand. But it's starting to cut into the lives of these people who don't want to care about politics and only care about money.
Want the appeal. That sounds like Venezuela. It sounds like Cuba. Mm-hmm. It's a real the terminology of seizing assets. That's foreign language to an American investor.
Right.
They want due process. They want the appeal. That sounds like Venezuela. It sounds like Cuba. Mm-hmm. It's a really bad look for New York.
Right. You violate our ideology and you no longer have property rights. You no longer are an individual that has the rights of the Constitution. This is how the left wishes to operate because they view themselves as the arbiters of virtue and merit itself. It's a very perverse ideology, of course, because they actually don't believe in merit and they don't believe in the individual. And in order to actually have virtue and merit, you have to be an individual and do meritorious things, virtuous things. To them, what gives a person virtue is adherence to their ideology. And the system for obtaining that virtue in the ideology is your victimhood status on the intersectionalist hierarchy: race, gender, sexual orientation, economic status. The more of a victim you are, the better of a person you are to these people. But that's perverse. So obviously, and so just to conclude that, obviously I won't say the name, public enemy number one. Who would be the least victimized person? Would it be perhaps a billionaire with a golden skyscraper who is above 6 feet tall, beloved by billions, and possibly elected to like a powerful public office, who's masculine and speaks his mind? You see, they invert the hierarchy. It makes so much sense. It's so obvious once you can understand where their ideology comes from. So if you're watching this video, like and comment so that people can see this.
It's gone beyond New York now. Bipartisan participants and financial services managers are not okay with this.
Right.
And getting very uncomfortable. And I think whether it's the Supreme Court that provides the adult supervision, whether it's somebody else.
If I were a public company, I would not be public. I would not be comfortable going public on the New York Stock Exchange. It is absolutely a liability.
We desperately need for this kid's party for the adults to get home.
Yeah.
We need them to come home now.
Appellate court, New York has a higher court, appellate court, should step up. A judge should step up and say stop. And basically save New York from itself.
Save New York from itself. The language is so eerie because it's so childlike. It's so juvenile. That's what you would do to a kid that doesn't know what they're doing. The parent steps in and saves the kid from himself, save the kid from making bad mistakes. The left is totalitarian. They are narcissistic. They are delusional, but they are also distinctly childlike, juvenile. Because what does a young teenager do? Oh, they don't understand reality. They resent the objective frameworks of the world. Oh, I'm going to rebel against truth itself. I'm going to rebel against these frameworks. Why do I need these frameworks? That's what the left is like in their postmodernist, Marxist, dogmatic worldview. It's very eerie, the symmetry you see with psychological pathology.
Yeah, most judges, including appellate judges in New York, are liberals. So while it's possible...
Again, eerie that the expectation is that they are so ideologically captured they cannot abide by the law, objective morality, and even their duty to a hypothetical greater good that would supersede an ideology. That expectation isn't there. That's what he's saying here, and I agree. I don't think that you can expect any higher court in New York to do this.
That one of them will come to their senses and issue a stay here.
Right, because coming to your senses would be more than just coming to your senses and admitting that you're wrong. It would be saying that something objective supersedes the ideology that grants you counterfeit virtue. This is why it's so dangerous. The leftist ideology doles out counterfeit virtue in relationship to the mechanism that I described earlier of inverted victimhood hierarchies. So this means that they can't. So it means that to admit something greater than their ideology exists is to betray that mechanism which allows them to call themselves good people in the first place. This is very dangerous.
You can count on it, which is why I would make the move to go to federal court.
Yeah.
You know, more than 250 years ago, this is what the British were.
Eerie that is. You can't go to state court because they're so ideological. They will deny the existence of the individual. They will deny property rights. They will deny the Constitution. You have to go federal. That is eerie stuff.
Doing to the colonists. They were imposing exorbitant fines and putting people out of business, which is why the framers, when they crafted the Bill of Rights, made sure the Eighth Amendment prohibition against excessive fines was in there. The moment the fine was imposed, it's so outrageous. His Eighth Amendment was being violated. And when corrupt government officials and biased judges misuse and abuse the law in violation of the Eighth Amendment, their victimized targets, Larry, can sue by filing a civil rights case against the government. And here they can move immediately for an expedited review based on a Bill of Rights.
Explain something that is not obvious. Even if he does sue, even if he wins, even if it is a public spectacle and the left is defeated and exposed as morally corrupt and openly tyrannical. That is the best case scenario. But even then, all that we did was hold the psychopath at bay. The psychopath is still there. The psychopath is still scheming and plotting and resentful of truth and morality and the human spirit itself. And the reason I'm saying psychopath is because the format of psychopathy involves narcissism and sadism, both of which are deeply instantiated principles in the left-wing ideology. So we need to start thinking of the left as a psychopathic entity which holds incalculable resentment for objective frameworks, meaning reality and truth. And they will do anything for power, because Marxism says that power is the only thing that exists in the world to define relationships between people. It's a lie, but that is what they claim.
Eighth Amendment violation by this judge and the Attorney General.
Absolutely. It's a different story.
I know, but American people are concerned about the situation in New York. I guarantee you that.
I think they're also concerned about this lawfare. This is unfair. You know,
I will say it is clear to 80 to 90% of Americans that what is going on is completely corrupt and unjust. The question is, what story and narrative are we going to adopt to tell ourselves about the psychopathy and the derangement of the left-wing psyche? Is it going to be one of victory and returning to individualism and meritocracy, individual responsibility and virtue? Or will it be descent into denial of the human spirit and resentment? That is the struggle that subconsciously most liberals that are not radical leftists are having right now. I witnessed this firsthand as I was surrounded by rich liberals in 2014, 2015. They are all behind Elon Musk. When I met Elon Musk the first, second, and third time, his social circle was rich liberals. I mean, he was building the electric car. He was essentially their hero. Watching him become demonized by him once he supported free speech and started speaking against what he did not yet conceptualize as Marxist ideology, and then seeing the divorce that transpired, I recognized, okay, liberals are going to have to decide whether or not they are going to abide in communism and the false dictates of Marxism and all the intellectual perversities that would have to go along with it, or will they redefine themselves and say, we're going to reject this idiocy? That in and of itself creates another stratification where some people, where I've seen some liberals say, no, we're going to value the individual meritocracy. I do not despise capitalism. I like the individual. I've taken responsibility for my life. And then I've seen a lot of liberals just go into the communist mental hellhole route. So unfortunately, even though politics is a low-resolution level of analysis, there is an unmistakable partisan element to the existential threat of civilization.